There we go. Good morning and welcome to Getting to Know You WVU TAB. My name is Carrie Staten. I'm the director of the Brownfields Assistance Center at West Virginia University. And we are very excited to be the new TAB provider for Region 3. And we look forward to introducing ourselves to you today, to letting you know a little bit more about what is happening at WVU TAB and the people who are making it happen and how you can get in touch with us, and to hearing more from you about what your needs are from Brownfield Technical Assistance Provider. Next. Right, just a quick overview of our agenda today. We're going to do a little bit of a welcome. We'll introduce all of our team, and we do still, again, encourage you to introduce yourselves in the chat so that we can all get to know each other a little bit better. We'll tell you a little bit more about the TAB program from EPA, as well as what the WVU TAB services in particular are. Some upcoming events that we may talk about a little bit. We don't have any hard dates, I don't think, but there are some good events to be watching for coming up in 2022. And then a little bit more information about how to get in touch with us.
All right, so again, we're here to talk about technical assistance to Brownfield. We call it TAB for short. And so that's a program that does provide assistance to communities and stakeholders as a way to help folks understand how they can address Brownfield sites and in order to increase their understanding. The TAB program is provided through the EPA, so funding is provided through EPA, and we were the recipient of the funding for that. And so the resources that are offered to communities are completely free. And so again, we are the Region 3 provider, and so that's Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. So WVU TAB, again, we are a resource independent, an independent resource provider. And again, some of the support that we provide is how to acquire brownfield sites, assessing them, understanding that process, and also the process for cleaning up the sites and redeveloping them. And in order to understand how can you take it from that dilapidated brownfield site and turn it into a better product for the community to help revitalize the area. Also helping communities understand the health impacts, something that you may not think about readily. And so again, we try to provide resources to help understand that, and also how technology is available for such site assessment and remediation. There are some handy tools available, and so we help folks understand that, and then also how to comply with the voluntary cleanup requirements. We have a very robust team here at WVU TAB, and that includes the Brownfields Assistance Center at WVU, the WVU Community Engagement Lab, and also the School of Public Health. And so each of these folks are going to tell you a bit more about their teams.
Great. So the Brownfields Assistance Center at WVU was established in 2006 by the West Virginia legislature. We helped to facilitate redevelopment of brownfields historically in West Virginia and now all over Region 3 by assisting local governments, economic development organizations, nonprofit organizations, pretty much anyone who asks for help with any number of issues related to brownfield redevelopment. That can include identification of those opportunities, how to engage community stakeholders in really genuine and meaningful ways, identifying some project barriers and figuring out how to overcome those, and then also identifying and pursuing project funding. And so we have a team, a robust and fun team of folks at the Brownfield Center, and I will let them introduce themselves individually. And Katie C., who's been helping to facilitate this meeting, is one of our lead project managers on WVU TAB, so we'll start with her.
Hi, everyone. Yep, my name is Katie. My background is in community planning. I've been a city or county planner for 14 years, so I have a vast understanding of the redevelopment process, but I'm here to help communities again understand the resources that are available to them, and help kind of help be that liaison, and working with communities and consultants, and putting them in touch with all the different ways, and trying to also find funding to help redevelop their brownfield sites.
Ray?
Good morning. I'm Ray Moeller, and I have been at the Assistance Center for 3 years. My primary role is in downtown redevelopment activities statewide in West Virginia, and I also work with communities that are doing brownfield activities, so helping with cleanup and assessment projects and related. So look forward to working with folks through the TAB program.
Nicole?
Hey everyone, I'm Nicole Diaz. I work at the Brownfields Assistance Center. I've been there for about 3 years. I primarily run the Bad Buildings Program, which is our brownfield, abandoned, and dilapidated buildings program. And I primarily do a lot of the on the ground in the community work.
Great. Kristen?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristen Bauer. I'm actually the new kid to the block. I started in October, but I am the Outreach and Education Coordinator for the Brownfields Assistance Center. And I'm just excited to explore my outreach background, which has primarily been in West Virginia over the past 7 years, into more of Region 3. So I'm excited to work with you in the future.
And Paige?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paige Wantland. I'm currently a master's in public administration candidate here at West Virginia University. I touch a bit of each project here at the Brownfields Assistance Center, and I've been here since August. Just very excited to work with TAB and learn a lot with you guys. So thank you very much.
Thanks. And I guess I'll circle back to me. So I'm the director of the Brownfield Center. I've been at the center for 10 years and the director since January. And I'm very excited to for the TAB program. My background is public administration and community engagement, and also fundraising through grant writing. So I'm a grant writer and do a lot of our grant reviews and a lot of our project management and program management as well. So that's the Brownfield Center, and we are super excited to partner with the Community Engagement Lab and the School of Public Health, who we've been working with for many years, but finally have a more formalized partnership and some federal funding to do it. So I will toss it to Peter.
Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Butler. I'm the director of the School of Design and Community Development at WVU. I'm also an extension specialist, and sort of the extension wing of my appointment is the Community Engagement Lab. With the Community Engagement Lab, we try to pair community projects with faculty courses and student interest. And so we do quite a bit of different types of work in community development, specifically in brownfields. And brownfields have been really great opportunities for design innovation and community development in West Virginia. And so we're really excited to begin working throughout the region in creating new plans and visions for brownfield redevelopment across EPA Region 3. And so we work at a lot of different scales. I'm going to show you an example of a couple different projects that we've worked on in the last years, and actually are currently working on in Pittsburgh through this EPA funded project. We want to create partnerships with communities and stakeholders. And so our process is very much participatory. We like to work from the ground up in developing ideas for site redevelopment or building redevelopment, for example, with our interior architecture program. Could you advance? Oh, thanks. So because our process is very participatory, we work in different modalities. During COVID, we've had some issues, obviously, with working in communities with people in their places, but we always seek to co-design. We practice social design, essentially. So we use design charrettes, visioning workshops. We do a lot of GIS and asset mapping at the community and county and regional scale, really. We work with communities on identifying strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, focus groups, and surveys. And we have developed in the past county-wide, community-wide plans, landscape building rehabilitation strategies, and we illustrate those concepts as a product and deliver that to the communities. We do draw the line at engineering and construction document development. So the ideal project from our point of view is that students and faculty work on visioning and concept planning, and then connect those plans and the communities with different practitioners. So that, you know, we can't stamp our engineering drawings, and we like to feed those services into professional practice, with our role being much more conceptual. And I'd like to introduce Lisa Orr, who's a associate professor in landscape architecture. She's on the TAB team as well in integrating projects into coursework, and she's actually a licensed landscape architect. So welcome, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Orr, and you just gave my whole introduction, basically. So I'm a licensed landscape architect, and I'm excited to be here and learn more about TAB, and to work with all of you, and with the students, of course. So I'm not sure what else I should say. I'm sorry that my background doesn't say WVU TAB, but I didn't get that email quite soon enough to get that.
Another faculty member in landscape architecture, Stefania Stanicia, is gonna hopefully be joining us a little bit later in the webinar today.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, good morning. Look at that shining face on the screen. My name is Christian Abilto. Actually really excited to be part of this project. I actually grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, have lived there and in Baltimore and in Elkton, Maryland, and worked in Dover, Delaware. So, and my father's from Delaware, so I have a lot of connections with the areas covered here. So I will largely be in the background doing the evaluation stuff, working on monitoring a lot of the activities and the services you'll hear about in the coming slides, and a lot of what is produced. So Carrie and Peter and the whole team are gonna be annoyed by all my monthly check-ins and tracking what they're doing, because I teach evaluation and I'm trained in physical activity and public health in the built environment. So we all know that what we do out in the communities will lead to on the ground changes and outputs, and then eventually changes in health behaviors, which is where, where I sit in public health. So I also co-lead this national network of rural physical activity and policy researchers and evaluators. And for years, we've been banging the drum about a lot of this built environment. You know, you change the environment and it improves access to healthy places to be active and healthy foods. And it's very urban centric. It's not who is actually changing the rural built environment, where developers are not flocking right now, right? So this, obviously, Brownfields is a key player nationally in that. So I'm excited to do, toward the end of the project, also some case studies on how these things have come to fruition and possibly impacting the communities. So the key is this last bullet. I appreciate honest responses to a lot of Zoom polls and surveys. We call it building your research karma. So obviously we all put out there a lot of surveys and a lot of we want public feedback. So this is a good way to build that karma by responding to, I see the presenter slides. You're over top of me. There we go. All right. Thanks, Katie.
Just wrap it up, Christian. I'm kidding.
Yeah, just keep me on my toes. I get it. No, but I really do appreciate honest responses to a lot of the polls and surveys that you'll get to ensure that what we're doing has an impact and what the team is doing has an impact. So I will turn it back over. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. And they will be painless. You already did one when you registered, and you'll do another couple while we're here. There is going to be a pop quiz at the end of the session, so be prepared. Take lots of notes. So yeah, so that's our team. We're very excited, and we'll tell you a little bit more about all of the services that we will be focused on in our TAB work.
Thanks, everyone. So I think you've had a little bit of a taste of some of the services we provide, and as they've discussed, we're going to go into more detail. But again, the crux of the four main services that we do provide through TAB is brownfields education, resource identification, community capacity, and local brownfields program support. and also project development and design assistance.
Great. So as I said, my background and passion is community engagement. So one of the main pillars for our TAB work that I'm personally especially excited for is our Brownfields education. And through that, we'll be providing trainings for all of you guys in things like this, webinars, community events, partnering with all of the states in the region, different organizations throughout the region on any number of specific brownfield topics, which could include contamination and assessment, health impacts, how to engage your community in redevelopment, available financing. And a couple of notes about this. The number one thing for all of our services is that we want them to be responsive. So in addition to hearing from you about how things are going through the very formal stuff that Christian's helping us do, we also want to hear from you. What do you want to know? What do you need to know about? It can be very informal. It can be, we've already started getting, kind of hotline style questions where people are reaching out to us through our different avenues to ask questions about their project in particular, or about things like all appropriate inquiry more broadly. And we definitely want to hear from you, and that will help us identify where there are topics that would be good to do a full webinar or workshop on, as well as just help you solve your problems in real time, or at least address some questions in real time. So definitely always reach out to us. I also will say that I hope that this is the most formal and most traditional webinar that you attend with us. We tend to be much more interactive and hope to be very engaging in our sessions and not just talking at you all of the time. So we encourage you to join us for those in the future, where we'll have a little more interaction whenever we're talking about some different kinds of topics. But just telling you who we are is hard to do in an interactive way, especially on Zoom. So, all right, Katie.
Thanks, Carrie. So again, kind of the second process of tools that we provide and assistance that we provide you with would be resource identification. That's assisting with required public meetings. When you have your cleanup grant and you're required to do that, we can help you in a variety of ways to help make sure you have assistance in getting the notification out, but also if you need any assistance in running the meeting. Identifying local health assessment data and resources for grant proposals. We can provide you with some assistance for gathering data. As we mentioned with Paige, our wonderful grad assistant, she's a pretty good sleuth with helping with some basic data. And then of course we have Christian and his services. We also serve as a liaison between stakeholders and their environmental consultants during the grant writing process. So we just wrapped up the EPA grant season. We're slightly happy about that, but also, we hope that we were able to provide a lot of communities and groups with the resources that they needed. And that assistance that we provided included, just a simple review. Maybe they felt that they just needed another set of eyes. So we're happy to do that. Or then we can also help with some actual grant writing. So that's something that's available. And then also working to find additional remediation funding. That's another service that we can, or another resource we can help you find as well.
Great. So then some of the more in-depth services that we'll be able to provide, we'll be doing some broader trainings on the next couple of services, and then also identifying some communities to work with more directly to build local community capacity in the Brownfields program. So we'll be doing some trainings on how to develop a brownfield inventory. We've been doing inventories ourselves for many years. We have a bad buildings program that Nicole mentioned earlier that does a community-driven, volunteer-led inventorying process. There's also really great tools from KSU TAB, which is the national TAB provider, that also has a lot of great resources that we'll be able to filter out to you guys throughout Region 3. And those inventories are kind of a first step to help you start to pursue your brownfield projects. It can help you be ready to apply for an EPA assessment grant, and then just get a better sense of where the brownfields are in your community to start tackling those. And so this work around these topics is going to gear up in early 2022. So definitely stay tuned to all of our channels to make sure that you get information about that, about how to access those training opportunities, and then also how to get more direct support on your programs. And again, this is another place where we want to be really responsive. And so we'll have our kind of set webinars, we'll have some formal processes to get engaged, but also as you're working on that yourself and questions come up, please always reach out to us, and we're happy to chat with you whenever whenever we can.
So again, I kind of went over this previously, but we will provide design assistance to different projects and different stakeholders to demonstrate and execute the design process and brownfield specific projects, facilitating workshops and community engagement events, and then also to work with local folks to develop the skills to and the capacity to hold their own redevelopment planning and visioning meetings. One of the goals from our perspective is to connect with regional practitioners that will help to facilitate those processes through our alumni network, and hopefully I see with Virginia Tech on the line here, working hopefully with the Virginia Tech Design Assistance Center, as well as other folks that work in this space regionally. And so we won't be able to work on design and planning on each and every project, but we hope to demonstrate excellent design processes and have really good outcomes for selected projects. So as I said, we do work in a participatory mode, and so I just wanted to share a quick example case study. This is in Marlinton, West Virginia, having a community meeting. The students meet with community members and map different assets and opportunities and create different goals for the community design projects and identify specific sites for potential redevelopment. Click, please. They develop an inventory of these sites and opportunities, and then each student will choose a different area within the community to work on design to develop concepts that can hopefully then go forward with stakeholder engagement towards implementation. Click. So this is a brownfield site in Marlinton. It's a former gas station. It sits adjacent to a building on the National Register of Historic Places, the Pocahontas County Opera House. And so this was identified through community meetings as a real opportunity for reprogramming and revitalizing this particular site. Click. So beyond the community-wide meeting to look at assets, we have a specific meeting to look at character elements that would be included in the space, character defining features, different programmatic elements or activities that the site would support, and kind of do a brainstorming design thinking exercise with community members to really design with them and not necessarily for them. Click. So we collect a lot of language, right? Words and different programming elements. This site in particular in Marlinton is part of the Mountain Music Trail, and the Opera House hosts different conferences throughout the concerts throughout the year. And we also wanted to integrate some of the Monongahela National Forest native vegetation into the design to create a gateway to the Mon National Forest, and also as a community asset for the town of Marlinton. Click. So on this project in particular, we worked through over 10 iterations with the community members. I had a graduate assistant, Carly Clevenstein, and another Niharika Alahari working on the project. It takes a while to create that specific vision that the community will then become stewards of moving forward towards implementation. But the final design was on the right side there, on the upper right side, and then some illustrations and visualizations of the character and the qualities of the space that would be moved forward for funding and implementation. Click. So this is a real success for us, to have the concepts developed by students. We never expect to see what is built to be exactly what is conceptualized by students. E.L. Robinson Engineering helped to develop the construction documents for this, and this was a really great model project because the construction companies, the contractors bidding on the work that were awarded the job were local contractors in developing that stage and farmers market space. Click. So that's one example. Can I share my screen here? Let's see. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can you see that
You
website
might
there?
need to stop yours, Katie, and then let him do it.
That's right. Thank you.
There we go.
Right. Here you go.
Okay. So Stefania Stanicia wasn't able to be here today, but she was just working on a TAB project this semester with her students in Pittsburgh. The sophomore and junior level studios in landscape architecture and in interior architecture, I would say, are more concept based and they're smaller scale. And so this actually, the studio looked at an entire industrial, post-industrial district in Pittsburgh and looked at revitalizing that area through participation of many different groups. Foremost was River Life in Pittsburgh and the Western Pennsylvania Conservation Group and the River Avenue District community members as well. And so the students will work on a project for an entire semester and develop a really robust set of drawings that describe both the inventory of the site. It's a little slow loading. And then creating more of a mixed use programming for the sites. And so this is where I think it would be really interesting for us to be able to bring students to different urban environments regionally to work on design and visioning, to connect with practitioners, to connect with stakeholders in that urban context, and to develop different redevelopment plans that would be much larger scale than the park project that I showed you earlier, but hopefully impact through that participation with community members, impact what actually is developed on the site. So much more of a mixed use type environment, trying to push sustainable urban development concepts like pedestrian friendly urban environments, multimodal transportation systems, innovative stormwater management systems, innovative urban food systems, energy systems, to really kind of set the bar high and looking at how brownfields, really brownfield districts and urban environments could potentially be redeveloped. And so we hope to, through this project, plan and design each year kind of a special brownfield urban design district and put that through the studio to create these visualizations. So that's what we're doing on the project. We're really excited to work with you all and bring some great design concepts. We're landscape architects and interior architects, and we like to stay in our lane. And so we know what we can bring to the TAB team and what we can bring to different communities and cities across the region. And we're very excited to work with you all.
Thanks, Peter. All right. We have one last slide, and then we'd like to open it up for your questions and to hear from you. So how do you connect with us? We have a website at brownfields.wvu.edu where you can learn more about WVU TAB, find all of our individual contact information, and also reach out to us. We'll be updating that throughout the course of our work as the TAB provider. We'll have examples of projects like the one that Peter just shared. We'll have different resources that we will link to. There's already a good number of those things on the site, but it will continue to build as we go. You can always reach out to us via email at wvutab@mail.wvu.edu, and somebody will get back to you right away. You can always find out what's going on with TAB when there's new webinars. We'll share news from the region and from individual states as it's available through our mailing list. When you registered, you were asked if you wanted to get more information, and that was your subscription to the mailing list. If you said yes, you're set to go. If you did not say yes and want to sign up, then you can do so through our website. And I believe somebody just dropped the link in the chat as well. Thanks, Kristen. All right, so as we go into questions and you're thinking about all your great questions, you can drop those in the chat or you can raise your hand and we'll manage some unmuting. But while you're doing that, we're going to launch our very quick quiz about what you've learned here today. So please, Christian will put on his puppy dog eyes to ask you to please answer the quiz so that we can continue to evaluate how we're doing. I'll leave that up for you guys for a second to answer just 2 questions about what services we provide and how can you get in touch with us. So go ahead and take a minute to do that. And while you're doing that, we'll watch the chat for some questions or hands
I'll
raised.
close my eyes so I don't see your responses.
Okay.
Thank you all.
We do have one question in the chat, so just let me know whenever you're ready.
Sure. You can go ahead and ask that while people are doing their
So
thing.
Stan asks if a qualification of a site as a brownfield site, is it your office, the West Virginia TAB office, that officially does that for EPA and here in central Pennsylvania?
Great question, Stan. Thank you. So there's not really a sort of stamp of approval that you are now a brownfield site. The EPA definition is a property that has real or perceived contamination that is hindering redevelopment of that site or the use of that site to its highest and best use. There are some qualifications for whether you qualify for different things like EPA grants, and then each state has different requirements related to their voluntary cleanup program, but we can help you navigate all of those things specifically to Pennsylvania. And I know we have some folks from EPA on the line. If there's anything I'm getting wrong or you want to chime in, please feel free. But if it's not a sort of formal process of you are now a brownfield. And in fact, one of my counterparts in West Virginia likes to say that if man has been there, it's probably a brownfield, right? We leave our mark everywhere we go. So yeah, if you have a specific question about a certain site and whether it might qualify for support, either through EPA or WVU TAB or any other programs, I would encourage you to reach out to us directly. We can talk about that particular site or sites. All right. We got pretty good response rate. So I think I'm going to go ahead and close it and we will share the responses. All right. Question 1, WTAB provides which of the following services? The correct and fully correct answer, what is it that you put on a test, Christian? The most correct answer is all of the above. We do provide all of these. However, answering any of the first 4 is also correct because we do provide brownfield education, resource identification, local brownfield program support, and project development and design assistance. And question 2, how can you get more information, is also all of the above is the most correct answer. So thank you for that. We will be sharing, I don't think I said this before, we are recording. I for sure said that. We'll share the recording and the slides with you afterwards, and the slides will be available on our website probably sometime next week. So you'll be able to go back to them, share them with anyone from your group that wasn't able to join us today, and then just get more information about how to reach out to us as well. All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Any other questions anybody wants to ask? There's our contact information. Thank you.
We did have a question just come into the chat from John Harbin asking, when working with localities, what departments do you most often work with? Economic development, planning, city county manager, public works, etc.
That's a really great question. I can answer it from the Brownfield Center, and then Peter, I don't know if your answer will be different. But for us, it's very different. It varies a lot. It really depends on the community itself. We have historically in West Virginia, especially worked with very small communities, so they don't usually have many departments. And so it might be an economic development agency, or it might be the city manager. There's not a lot of planners in West Virginia, so I haven't worked with a lot of planning departments, but I have worked with some. It just really depends on the locality and who that is. But I do find for any project that it's incredibly important that there is a local, what we call a project champion, who's driving the work. So we've said several times that in order to work with TAB, you just need to ask for help. That's what we're here for. It's free to you. We do not, as a model, pick communities and say we're coming to help you if we've never heard from you before, because it's your community. So we're not going to insert ourselves, but we want to make sure that you know we are here to help you where you need it. So, Peter, I don't know
I
if
would
you
just-
have a similar
Yeah,
question
I would
answer.
kind of ditto that. I mean, the lack of planning commissions in West Virginia requires that we work with a lot of different types of stakeholder groups. So economic development authorities in the counties that we've worked with. We work with non-government organizations quite a bit. Parks and Recreation departments, that was a partner in Pocahontas County. So it's very diverse. And I think one of the things that we've learned over the years, and I don't know if Carrie would agree with this, but if there's a non-government organization that is kind of carrying the torch for the projects, and then they bring it to the city or county folks, there can be more success there. And so again, having public meetings, being out in the open, engaging lots of different organizations is always our highest goal. And those are the most successful projects that bring all of those diverse stakeholders together.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think the more diverse stakeholders you've got for any project, you're definitely going to see broader success. I see, does WVU TAB have experience working with Native American tribes? The Brownfield Center does not. There are not any federally recognized tribes in West Virginia. However, we can assist with tribes throughout the region. And there also is a TAB provider specifically for tribes at KSU, and we can help partner with them and connect any tribes with them to work to collaborate with the KSU TAB folks as well. I don't know, Peter, if you have any experience working with tribes.
No, I do not, but I would really look forward to
Definitely.
working with tribes in the region. Absolutely.
Brendan wants me to be a fortune teller and say whether there's a sense of funding in the region being forecasted as steady, increasing, or declining in the next few years. I don't have a magic 8-ball for specifically the typical funding, but I can tell you that the recently passed bipartisan infrastructure bill included $1.5 billion for the Brownfield program, which includes significant increase in EPA cleanup, assessment, multi-purpose, and revolving loan fund grants, and maybe workforce training grants. I can't remember that, as well as funding to the states. And so that's over the next 5 years, that 1.5 billion. And I believe that I know we are still waiting to hear exactly what that's going to look like from EPA, how they're going to put that out. There are also some changes for that funding in particular, just the infrastructure bill funding for brownfields, in the different requirements for cost share and for the caps for how much funding you can ask for on a single grant. And as we learn more from EPA, we will be helping to get that information out to all of our stakeholders and helping everyone navigate accessing that information. But that is a very exciting development. I personally am super excited about that and looking forward to helping as many projects and communities in Region 3 access that money as we can. Elizabeth has a question for Peter about how many design projects do you have underway at any given time?
Too many. We have so many requests for design services right now that we're needing to actually say no. Yesterday I was in studio and Stefania students were presenting this Pittsburgh project. I went to an interior architecture studio and they were working with a community partner and Jane Liu on building rehabilitation. We have another program going right now called the Fulcrum Project, where 10 communities every year are selected for design services. So whether it's in the classroom, if it's a project that fits with a studio classroom, we try to make those connections as much as possible. And that's been really successful recently with interior architecture and landscape architecture in particular. I also have a few grad students that can work on design projects that are funded through various grants and capacity funds from USDA, NIFA. And Carrie just hired one of our top students to work in the Brownfield Center as well. And so, yeah, so at anyone, I guess I could just answer the question. Projects continue over time. And so we're working 10 new projects a year, essentially, but the projects just, continue. It can take 2, 3, 4, sometimes 9, 10 years to see a project through to implementation. And so they never go away, and we love continually working on them.
Thanks, Peter. And how did you get involved in the River Life site? Kimberly is asking, was it outreach from the project developer, Economic Development Corporation? Are you typically involved in a project before or after they may have received a grant from EPA? I think we can both answer that second bit, but if you want to talk about the River Life a little bit.
So the project in Pittsburgh, we connected with an alum that was working with River Life, Anna Withrow, I can't remember her new married name, and also a gentleman who works in the Pittsburgh, what is the name of the organization? It's a land redevelopment organization in Pittsburgh, Greg Miller. So we connected with 2 folks and looked at different potential sites with the instructor, with Stefania, and she really thought that this site had really great potential for a studio project. And so, we'll be working and reaching out to different folks across the region to identify those best projects to invest the student time in. But that's how it developed for us. In West Virginia, those projects are really identified by local folks, usually by the either city councils or nonprofit groups that see an opportunity. And we have a portal to request design services through the Community Engagement Lab website. And so that, that's how it happened in Pittsburgh, is connection with local folks working on redevelopment projects in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and then I think about whether we're involved before or after they receive a grant from EPA. My experience is so the answer is that it can be anytime. We're happy to engage before you've applied for a grant, to help you apply for that grant. Afterwards, maybe you're never even gonna apply for a grant. So our history at the Brownfield Center is that probably, I don't know the percentages, but a small subset of the projects that we work on actually do apply for and then go on to receive EPA grants, because sometimes they're not the right fit, right? It might not be a project. The cleanup may not be so substantial that they need to apply for a cleanup grant. Their needs may be different. And so the answer is all of the above. But typically we have been involved before. In West Virginia, we were started to do a lot of things, but the real reason we were started was to help get more EPA funding into West Virginia. Our legislature said, there's all this money out there and none of it's coming here. Somebody's got to help bring it in. And so a lot of the work that we have done has been to help people get those funds, but then also finding other funds through philanthropic organizations, other funding sources to fund different aspects of the project outside of just the pure environmental pieces. Because if any of you have worked on brownfields so far, you know that it's not just the environment, like you don't just clean it up and then you're done and everything's hunky-dory. There's a lot of other aspects that you have to address. And so we can work, have worked on any number of things, and we certainly want to see as many projects apply for and receive EPA funding as possible, but we can help figure out which one of those might make the most sense, or if there's a different avenue that makes sense as well. Any recommendations on how to jumpstart interest in brownfield work among localities or other stakeholders with the goal of finding that project champion? Oh man, Ray, we talk about this all the time, don't we? I think from the TAB perspective, we are happy to come help you do as much education of your localities and stakeholders as possible and really help illuminate what brownfields are, and that brownfields are all around you, right? And that a lot of things there may be a brownfield aspect to include in something, and that our motto sort of at the center is that not everyone has to be a brownfields expert. That's why we're here. And so if your community is really just looking to create a trail on an old rail line, then that's what they're focused on, and we can come and provide that expertise and training on what the brownfield and environmental aspect is, and help make those connections. But I don't know, Ray. Ray, have you figured out how to build project champions yet?
We don't try to build them. We just try to uncover them and find them in their natural environment and then take them home. A lot of what Carrie said obviously is true. And then in addition, some of the downtown work that I've done, it can jump out as there's going to be an ownership change for an old building downtown that may or may not have environmental impact from over the years. Just getting that phase one done, assuring that they even understand the critical nature of getting phase ones and having the appropriate environmental aspects. And then that uncovers the champion that can help make that project come to fruition. So coming alongside and just having that awareness throughout the process and throughout kind of every interaction. And then Carrie's really good, and our organization does a lot of outreach. So we try and pull them out of the weeds where they've been hiding as well.
Yeah, I think that project champion is a hard question for a lot of communities. Yeah, and if anybody has the magic key, we'll be happy to make copies and share it around.
Well, I think one of the things that we depend on is not developing those project champions, but empowering them. So we have folks that are requesting design services and engagement. And one of the big questions that we ask in our application is, what organizations are you partnered with? What capacity do you currently have? What are some successes that you and your organization have? So we want to invest where capacity is, where those champions are. And then as those projects are recognized, then new champions come out of the woodwork, right? And so if you have a best example of a project, like in the Marlinton stage and market, every little community in West Virginia wants one of those right now, right? Because it's a great public space. They have people come into town for music and theater, and it's a creative placemaking strategy. And so once those champions are identified and they amplify their story, then more champions begin to develop, and that's the case in rural communities, definitely.
I think that's a great point. Thanks, Peter. All right. Give everyone another couple of minutes to ask some questions. I'm going to launch our post test. So you guys are completing this, but this is really evaluating how we have done. So these questions may look familiar to you from the registration, but I encourage you to please complete them so that we can keep track of these things as we report to EPA and continue to shape our presentations to make them more effective for you. Really appreciate all your questions. Those are really good questions. And if there's anything that you didn't get to ask or that you don't feel like you got a full answer on, please do reach out to us. We're happy to connect one-on-one or with a group of your folks. And also we still have a few minutes, so definitely keep asking questions in the chat if you have other ones. I don't want to cut anybody off for sure. We've got 10 more minutes in our scheduled time together. And I'm happy to hang around and chat a little bit until that time as well. So, all right. Thank you so much to our speakers, Peter, Christian, Katie, and all of our different staff at those three places. We're very excited about this. We're excited to partner with all of you and to partner with EPA and to spend some more time, hopefully physically getting out to your communities throughout Region 3 in the next few years. And I'm just going to stop the recording, but as I said, stick around, ask some questions, say hello, and have a lovely end of year celebration, and we'll see you in 2022.